Hi, my name's Drew and I'm going to be walking you through the Palomino HS690 today. So starting right up front here, we have your battery disconnect switch here. What you're going to use this for is periods of long-term storage. So what this is going to do is this is going to isolate that battery from the system. You use it for periods of long-term storage because there's going to be nominal or phantom draws on any 12-volt system. You know, from the day to day, that's no big deal, but compounded over months of storage, it can really wear and tear on the battery. Now the battery within this unit is in a sealed battery box underneath the step up into the cab over, so it is not easily accessible. So you're going to use this auxiliary switch here to disconnect that battery. Easiest way to familiarize yourself with that is if that key is locked in there, that's going to be on or connected, that is ready for use. If we go ahead and rotate that key and remove it, that's going to be disconnected or isolated. So in that same thought process, with that battery being in that location, again in that sealed battery box, what you have here is two auxiliary terminals for any sort of storage or maintenance or anything like that. Yeah, for any maintenance or charging or maintaining, you're going to go ahead and use these terminals here. Again, just some auxiliary battery terminals, keep you from having to access that battery compartment any more than you should. Now, one thing that we do need to talk about when it does come to that battery is what we include standard with these units is a interstate deep cycle battery, which is a lead acid battery. There is some maintenance with that battery. What that's going to include is 2 or 3 times a year, we're going to go ahead and pull those vent panels off the top of that battery and refill with distilled water. So there is a clear marked water level. It is just our goal to go ahead and maintain that water level. Also up front here, you have your 7-way receptacle here. Now, what that's used for is that's going to link your tow vehicle and your camper as one. That's going to give you full function to your vehicle's charging system, marker lights, tail lights, things like that. Whenever that is connected through your bed port and then again this umbilical connection here, think about it as one large vehicle at that point as opposed to 2 separate vehicles. Right here we have a little bracket there to hold your 7-way cord. Again, when it's not in use, you can go ahead and store it there, keep it from being on the ground or anything like that. On all 4 corners of the unit, we have the Ryco jacks here. These are wirelessly controlled with a remote, and we'll get to that operation there on the back side of the unit. But under each one of these rubber stoppers on the jack head is going to be your manual drive. There's no disengage of the motor or anything like that, and it is going to be just a 3/8 square drive. So what you can use is a 3/8 ratchet, an extension, and then you would go ahead and actuate each one of these jacks in kind of short bursts until you could either load or unload the unit. And again, this is just an emergency only situation. If you have a power loss scenario, you can go ahead and either load or unload the unit with that. We have here a 30 amp 110 volt power connection here. This is your power cord. It only plugs in one way. If you can see, you have one L-shaped prong here and one there, and you just line them up, plug straight in, give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right there, that locks it in. Then we do have a secondary collar here we can screw down, lock it in further. Below that, we have a couple RG6 cable fittings. These are just a pass-through cable connection to the designated TV area of the camper, and it is just a pass-through connection. So some park cable or some higher-end campgrounds will offer a park cable service, and just about every satellite provider is offering a satellite package geared towards RVers. Either way, this is going to be the inlet of those services, and it is going to transition terminate at the designated TV area of the camper. Beside that, we have your furnace vent there. Now you got to be careful. This does blow very hot air when it is on and running, and this is your exhaust. So it is very important that we do let it exhaust, let it breathe. We're not going to want to put anything in front of it or block that pathway at all. One thing to speak of is with all of these propane and burning appliances, they are open to the environment. So what that means is what you have here is a large intrusion point for mud daubers, flying insects, things like that. they crawl deep within the appliance and build their dirt nest, again, as far within the appliance as they can. So not only with the furnace here, but with the refrigerator vent, the water heater, things like that, we do want to use a secondary screening material to go ahead and keep them, those insects from nesting within the appliance. Other than that, your thermostat's going to be controlled from the inside. All your controls with this are going to be on the inside. It's not what we would really consider a customer serviceable unit. So from a maintenance standpoint, not too terribly much you're going to do with that. I'm just going to poke my head down low here, make sure we're not missing any water connections, and it looks like they're not on this side, so we're safe there. Hopping up here to your refrigerator vent. Again, kind of on the same lines as the furnace here. This is not really what we would consider a customer serviceable unit. There's just not much to do on this side of things. All your controls are going to be on the front side of the unit. But again, same rule of thumb, we're going to go ahead and screen these openings in further to keep, again, any mud daubers, flying insects from nesting within the appliance. Other than that, maybe remove this vent a couple times a year, give it a visual inspection, make sure nothing's gotten in, make sure everything looks as well as it should. And then when replacing this, you're going to want to make sure you route your condensation hose through the grating there, and then you put the tabs up top first. We're going to line those up here with those pegs, and we go ahead and give them a quarter turn there. That locks them on. Then we go back and we just give it a little tug, make sure that it is in fact locked on, and you'll be good to go until you are giving that the visual inspection next time around. Your propane compartment here. Now what we have here is a single 20-pound propane cylinder. Open and close valve is here on the top. You have a pigtail leading to a regulator. That is all pretty standard equipment, held in place here with a tension band and a wing nut. Now this propane is going to be full for you when you pick up your unit. I find that generally most people have seen a tank like this before. They know about the valve on top. It is very straightforward. Again, that is going to be your propane supply there. Coming around here to the rear of the unit, not too terribly much to speak of here on the rear. Of course, we have your porch light. Switch is going to be right there on the actual fixture. I do believe you have a switch on the inside as well. So that redundant switching makes it easy to operate whether you're inside or out. So what we have up top here is going to be a pre-wire for a Furon backup camera. All of these units do come pre-wired, again, for that backup camera. That's going to make it really easy to go ahead and add a camera at any time. What these cameras do is they give you a full-time rear view. Anytime those marker lights are on, that camera will be in operation. Coming down here, we have a standard RV assist handle. Does lock in the out position, is easily folded against the body during transport as well as against the door. So whatever makes more sense for you, feel free to use it either way. Coming around here to the side, we have a standard RV outside shower. Excellent feature, is very usable. You know, washing off critters, you know, rinsing your feet off, you go to the beach, something like that, or feel free to set up a shower tent and shower outside. Again, access to hot and cold water, nothing too crazy here from a functionality standpoint. Everything does go ahead and wrap into this compartment. Not super easy, but it is easily, or it can be done. But again, nothing too crazy there. Coming around here, we have your city water connection. Now it is important to talk about water pressure when we do talk about that city water connection. Now we include a water pressure regulator with you. That's going to keep that water pressure regulated in between 40 and 50 psi. Generally, for most customers, that's more than enough pressure. I have heard of a few people wanting more pressure. In the event that you would like a higher pressure into the unit, feel free to either upgrade to an adjustable water pressure regulator, high flow water pressure regulator, whatever. Just make sure you're not exceeding that 75 psi water pressure. So with any water pressure, that's going to hook directly onto the spigot side of the hose. From there, of course, you hook your hose directly onto this trailer connection by rotating that connection there. So very easy to do. Again, just make sure you always use a water pressure regulator. If yours happens to get lost, damaged, stolen, make sure it's replaced before taking the unit out. Down low here, this is going to be your drain. Now there is no gray water holding tank on the Palominos. So essentially you have your sink right there inside the window, and it just is plumbed directly from the sink out the side. Now this is a standard garden hose size fitting. What that means is, of course, you can go ahead and route your, attach a hose here, route your wastewater away from your campsite if need be. You can catch it in a bucket like we do here. Whatever works for you, that is just the scenario that you're going to be working with. A couple 110 all-weather outlets here. Nothing too crazy with that. Just some outlets for your outside space here. Right here we have your on-demand water heater. This is a tankless water heater. Works exceptionally well at producing hot water on demand. Very important, or the limitation of this appliance is going to be it does not do very well when being stored in cold weather. You have a lot of copper and brass fixtures and things like that that can crack and things if the water does freeze with it. Now, the appliance itself is very smart. It does have a mode. If you have power to the unit, a supply of propane gas, you can leave it on. It's going to have a an anti-freeze mode where it'll kick on periodically in cold weather, just enough to heat that water, enough to keep it from freezing. So that's an excellent feature. If you are storing the unit somewhere where you do not have access to electricity or propane, very important that we go ahead and we winterize the unit completely. We want to keep antifreeze through the lines of the unit and through the entire lines of the camper to, again, keep any freezing, any cracking of lines, any busted fixtures, things like that. Other than that, you have an on-off switch here that's going to turn this unit on. On the inside, we're going to have a display that's going to give us temperature readings and controls, things like that. For that display on the inside to work, you need to turn this unit on outside. So, other than that, we'll kind of talk about that a little bit further there on the inside of the unit. Forward here, we have your freshwater connection. Now, if we're doing any off-grid camping, we don't have access to running water. Before we get there, we're going to go ahead and stick a garden hose directly in there. We're going to fill it up till it overflows. Once full, we go ahead and cap it off. And there is an onboard water pump within the system to go ahead and pump that water up from the tank and make it usable throughout the unit. That is going to be switched on the inside. We'll get to that on the inside. It's very easy. And it goes without saying that that water pump is only to be used when you are drawing off of the tank here. Of course, city water is pressurized directly from the line. As we spoke of earlier, is generally overpressurized, and that's why we need to regulate that pressure. Other than that, here on the outside, nothing too crazy. Of course, we have your outside speakers and with the blue lights. They look very cool. We'll get to the functions of those on the inside. And again, lastly, I'm just going to take a quick look down low, make sure I'm not missing anything. It is worth noting that here down low, we have your low point drains. Now, these are the lowest point in the unit's plumbing, so everything in between water source and fixture is going to be drained via these two lines here. That's not only going to be great for general maintenance, but for winterization as well. So manufacturer recommends that anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days, that we do go ahead and purge all the water from the system. To do that, we're going to utilize these low point drains. Again, that's going to be all that in between plumbing, everything in between water source and fixture. Just about covers it here on the outside of the unit. We're going to go ahead and hop on the inside and take a look at those features in there. Here inside the unit, we have your Rico Titan remote here. Now, this is how we're going to wirelessly control those jacks that we saw there on the outside of the unit. And we're going to do that from the rear. So orientation of this remote is from the rear. So if we're looking at the remote here, we have your driver side front, passenger side front, driver side rear, passenger rear, or all the jacks at the same time. Now, a couple rules of thumb before we talk about that remote further is that, you're going to be lifting the camper up. The higher you get, the more unstable things get. That camper should never be up in the air more than it takes to load it or unload the camper. There should never be anybody inside the unit while loading and unloading. And always keep that front slightly higher than the rear, just slightly. As you can see, the unit is front heavy with that cab over. If you let that cab over dip down too low, it's going to tip over forward. So keep that in mind. When it does come to using the remote, again, this is a wireless remote. We have the board here, so we go ahead and we turn it on. We push that toggle switch. As long as that green light's on, that means everything is working and connected. So from there, I could actuate these jacks again independently or all at the same time. Now this is a battery-driven remote. If this were to happen to run out of batteries for you, you didn't have a spare, you can go ahead and plug this directly into the board. So in your messenger bag, you're going to find a coiled communication cord that's going to link this with the board. You can use that again in the event that you run out of batteries. Now say you leave this on the bumper, you drive down the road, it gets lost or whatever. Also in that messenger bag, you are going to find a secondary remote. Now that secondary remote is red in color, denotes that it is only to be used in an emergency. That one does not have batteries in it, so the only way to run that remote is plugged into the board there. Other than that, here right inside the door we have your awning switch here. Now this unit does not have an awning on it. They did equip the switch though. It is an option. You can add that awning at a later date, and you already have the switch ran here on the inside. Up top here we have a courtesy light here on the right. Now that is just a light, a common switch we can hit coming into the unit at dark time that's going to light our way until we can go ahead and get some more lights turned on. This light's going to be the secondary or the redundant switch for that porch light. You may be able to see that reflecting off my hand. Again, that porch light does have a switch right there on the fixture. This is, of course, if you're inside and you want to turn it on from the inside. Switching gears over here to your fire extinguisher. Now, this is part of your safety equipment. It is very important that we do test all of our safety equipment every single time we take the unit out. To do that, we're going to go ahead and push this green tab down. If it springs back, that means we still have life in the unit, it is still workable. If that stays depressed, it's time we go ahead and pull that unit out and replace it. Now coming into the unit here, up top above my head, we have an exhaust fan. This does have a standard 12-volt toggle switch there. Works very well. Now this is going to run in reversed, or this is going to exhaust air. The idea being is you could open up these side windows with the screens, and that's going to allow you to get a cross breeze going. Very important that this is closed when going down the road. I generally will make the joke in my presentations that this is something you only forget once, because generally it's not there when you get to where you're going. Very important, this particular model is kind of on like a spring. You go ahead and pull it towards you, and that will allow you to pull it down and lock it. Refrigerator here. Now this is a 3-way Dometic refrigerator. We'll go ahead and turn it on with this first button all the way to the left. It may take a couple seconds, but then it's going to go ahead and boot up. It's going to default to your last saved option, which in our case is auto. Now in that auto, if you have AC voltage available, it's going to default to that. If AC voltage is unavailable or becomes interrupted, it's going to then start lighting on gas. If we want to go ahead and switch it here with the middle button, that's going to switch from whatever source we are in, whether that's auto or standalone gas, and that's going to take it into DC. So that middle switch just switches in between DC and whatever other option is available. If we go ahead and hit this last button, that's going to go ahead and switch between auto and gas. So middle button takes it into DC, last button takes it into gas, and then it defaults to auto when you start it up. We have temperature control here, 5 different settings. Of course, further to the right is going to be coldest. Towards the left is going to be cold. We have a check light in the middle there. That's going to light up if you encounter any issues. If it fails to light on gas, cannot find a power source, it's going to illuminate that check light for you. On the inside, nothing too crazy. It's going to look very much indicative of like a dorm style fridge. It does have a fold down ice box. Again, nothing too crazy. You know, different storage options here. Got a hanging closet rail in there, a couple drawers. We have the blower motor for your furnace here. Thermostat for that is going to be Oh, right there, I looked right at it. So thermostat's gonna be here. And this has a single mode there, or a single slider, and you just slide that to your comfort level. It's not an exact science. It'll take some figuring out where you like it. But once you go ahead and slide this up, that blower motor comes on almost immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing noticeable heat. Generally in a unit of this size, because of its proximity to the smoke alarm, it's almost always going to set off that smoke alarm within that first 15 minutes of operation. That is very standard. Don't be alarmed if that happens. If it continues to happen after that 15 minutes of operation, then at that point it's something that we need to look at. Focusing here more on the kitchen area. Up top first, we have your Suburban cooktop. Nothing too crazy. This is a very basic kind of camping stove. Setup does not have a spark or igniter or anything like that. To light it, you're going to go ahead and turn this to light. You'll take a long stem barbecue lighter and you're going to hold your flame directly onto the burner. Very easy to use. Again, not something that's an exact science. So when you're trying to cook something, you're going to again take some finagling there to kind of figure out where you like that burner and the temperature and things like that. Goes without saying, this cooktop or this glass top here is not a cooktop. It's not a griddle. You need to let that burner cool down before going ahead and closing this tempered glass top. I've seen these come back broken. You do need to make sure you are letting the unit cool down completely. Then we do have a sink here, bowl style sink. Love that bamboo countertop extender there. But again, super easy, left or right there in terms of temperature. To the left's going to be hot, to the right's going to be cold. I'm not going to run too much water through there because again, I'm not sure if my bucket on the outside is positioned correctly and I do not want to make a mess. Down low here we have your water heater setup as well. So if we go ahead and take a look at this, again we have that power switch here. That's going to let you know your set temperature here. So when it comes to operating this, what I have found through experience works the best is you're going to set this temperature. So generally, let me back up a little bit. So generally when you're like taking a shower in the residential sector or something like that, you turn the hot side on. Generally that standalone hot is too hot to be comfortable. So you turn a little bit of cold water on to mix it and get a temperature that is comfortable. This doesn't operate. You can of course use it in that capacity. It doesn't operate the best that way. I have heard that it can be slightly unreliable, give you kind of cold bursts like somebody flushed the toilet or something like that. So what I have found that works the best is you can go ahead and you can dial this down to a temperature that you find comfortable with only using that hot side of the water. Again, it's going to take some figuring out, but once you have attained that temperature, you can then have a much more reliable experience with this only using that hot side. Now again, this unit does not have a shower here on the inside, so it may not be an issue because you're going to mainly be washing dishes. If you're using the outside shower, then we might think of that scenario there. Other than that, other than controlling temperature here, you have an on-off switch. You can switch between Celsius and Fahrenheit, but really that's all the controls you're going to have here. This is going to be your water pump switch. So we go ahead and turn that on. That pressurizes the system. It is an on-demand water pump. What that means is once it pressurizes and reaches its full pressure, it enters a standby mode and shuts off. The next time you run the sink or run a fixture, it turns on, runs again. Once you stop, repressurizes, and there you go. There you have it. Moving on here, nothing too terribly much here in this kind of sitting area. You have a couple USBs, cup holders, things like that. Coming down here to the floor, we have your carbon monoxide LP leak detector. Now that is wired into the 12-volt section of the camper, so it kind of secondarily functions as a low battery alarm, as well as there is no battery to change within the unit. It's not like your smoke alarm, which would be a 9-volt battery. Now this is going to indicate to you which gases it may be sensing with a series of lights, things like that. It does work very well. Nothing too crazy there. We have your main GFI outlet here. Now all the receptacles within this unit are on the same are on the same circuit. So what that means, if one of them were to get overloaded, they all kind of follow suit. This would then be the reset point to restore function to those receptacles. And then here we have your fuse panel breaker box here. What we have up top here is going to be your standard light switch style breakers. Those are going to be resettable just like your fuse box at home. And then down below here we have your replaceable blade style automotive blade fuses there. Now it is very important that we do go ahead and keep a few of these with the units. They don't have a habit of burning out, but they generally will stay in good condition. But as fate would have it, if you don't have a spare, you'll probably almost immediately need one. Then back here on this, a little bit of redundant things here. We have the couple USBs, cup holder, things like that. Now this area itself, where I'm physically standing, of course you have a couple options. You have a pedestal base here and a tabletop here. You can go ahead and set this up as your dinette. Of course, for the space restrictions here, we have that removed. But one point I'd like to make is start with this in the outward position. So go ahead and before you even start trying to put that into the table, go ahead and unscrew that. That's going to give you better luck when you actually go to insert it into the flange there and tighten it up here. So with that tightened up here, we go ahead and we just sit the tabletop on top of that. That's very easy and straightforward, nothing too crazy for that. Now this does make a bed, and what we're going to use to do so, which it's going to be in this brown bag here, it's a same style of a pedestal, but it's a shorty. So you're going to screw that into the flange there the exact same way, again making sure that this is all the way backed out before doing so. You're then going to take the tabletop and put it in that lowered position. Now it's not only going to be supported on the flange here with that lower pedestal, but it is also going to be sitting here on these black bumpers. From there you're going to take these two back cushions, you're going to lay them out. That is going to fill out that space, make that a very usable space, again, a secondary sleeping area for a small adult or small child. Coming up here, a lot going on here on this wall here. We have your charging center here, which is going to give you access to a couple USBs as well as a 12-volt cigarette lighter style receptacle. We have a couple 110-volt outlets. We have your antenna booster plate here. So we saw the cable and satellite inlets there on the outside. This is where those do terminate. Also with those, we have a omnidirectional digital over-the-air television antenna on the roof. What that does is if you have a TV hooked up in here, you can go ahead and do a channel search. And with that channel search, it's going to automatically seek out the best signal. It's going to go ahead and bring in any programming that would be available with that. Now we have, so to turn that on, excuse me, let me back up. So to turn that on, that red light needs to be on. There's a button right next to that. So once that red light is on, you then do your channel search. It's going to go ahead and bring in that digital programming. Now that antenna shares the space of the cable inlet. So if you are utilizing that cable inlet for a park cable service, then this red light would need to be on to let that cable signal bleed through and make it usable in that capacity. Now here we have your Furon stereo. What this is going to give you access to CDs, DVD, AM/FM radio, and Bluetooth. You have multiple inlets here, 3.5mm jacks as well as a USB, and you have two sets of speakers. So you have speakers for the inside and speakers for the outside. We saw those with those blue lights. So if you're utilizing this as a DVD player, you're going to come up here to this plate and you're going to think of this as the back of your DVD player. This is where you're going to make your connection from TV to DVD player. So very easy to use. I find in this day and age, most people can work themselves around these units without the manual, but there is a manual with the unit, so if you do have any questions, feel free to consult that. Above my head here, we have not only your 9-volt smoke alarm. So this runs on a 9-volt battery. It'll let you know when it needs to be changed. If you have any luck like me, it's going to be at 3 a.m. or better. So again, my recommendation is going to be keep a spare 9-volt battery with you in the event that it needs to be changed. Obviously, just like at home, we don't want to remove that battery when it gets low. Things like this. This is, again, part of your safety equipment. This needs to be tested every time you take the unit out in conjunction with your fire extinguisher and your carbon monoxide detector down there on the floor. Above my head, we have your air conditioner. Now, this is not controlled with that furnace thermostat that we talked about before. This has its own built-in thermostat. If we look here at the dial, this black is going to be fan only. You have three fan speeds there with fan only. And then we have air conditioner with 3 fan speeds here as well. So we just go ahead and dial through those, and I may have went ahead and cut the power to the unit, so it looks like we're running on 12 volt. But either way, you get the point. 3 fan speeds, air conditioner on the blue dial, fan on the black, and then we have a secondary thermostat here. We can have control over that setting within the setting essentially. Different modes here, different louvers. You can directionalize that anywhere you'd like. Does have a cleanable filter, reusable filter, I should say. Take a flat-bladed screwdriver, kind of pry this out of there, remove the grating, go ahead and get that netted filter out, rinse it out in the sink, let it dry, go ahead and replace it. Should last you many years to come. On top of in the bed area, and really the only thing we really truly need to speak of up there, the rest is kind of pretty easy to work your way around, is going to be your fantastic fan. Now you're going to go ahead and crank the lid open here with this handle, and then again, probably a little hard to see on camera, but we do have 4 speeds there close to me. Only other things we have in there is going to be a bus style fuse and a locking tab. Again, very important that we close that fan, lock it down before going down the road. Only other things we need to talk about is your windows. So you have emergency exits on both sides, 2 different styles. So this is your latch style. So you go ahead and flip these latches. That's going to allow you to come full out like a doggy door. This one is slightly different. Again, both of these you need to remove the screen before exiting. This one is your push style, and these like to get stuck, but you can still use it as a normal window. You can still use that one as a normal window, but that is the position. So both of these will come full open like a doggy door. Again, if you're particularly motivated enough, you can go ahead and exit either side if your entry door is blocked. All the other windows are going to be crank out style like that. And this particular window uses a standard metal mini blind. And again, I'm kind of like jumping back and forth, but this one's going to have a pull down shade. So multitude of different window options. But they are all pretty simple and easily to work around. I believe we kind of hit all the points in terms of appliance function and things like that. If you do have any questions, feel free to give us a call. We do hope you enjoyed this walkthrough on the Palomino Backpacker. Thank you.